Hi, this is James with the Permaculture Woodshop. This is just a quick introductory video that I'm going to do, kind of explaining the different methods of measurement that the gauge frame level can do. The gauge frame level has three main methods of measurement. It has height difference, currently in inches. We are working on a metric version, so that'll be out later. So with this, it'll show one leg is 6 inches higher than the other one, or one leg's 10 inches lower than the other. It then measures percent slope, and then it measures construction slopes of horizontal to vertical. So let's say you're watching a permaculture video about building a dam wall, and it says you need to have a dam wall of 2 to 1. What that means is 2 horizontal units to every 1 vertical unit. And so the gauge frame level does all three. This short little video is about percent slope. Now if you go to the Permaculture Design Manual on page 230, Bill Mollison has a chart about percent slope. On his chart, a horizontal line is 0%, a 45-degree angle is 50%, which is halfway between the two, and a vertical line is 100%. Now it's a brilliant way of looking at it. The problem comes is if you try using these numbers of percent slope and you try talking to anyone outside the permaculture world, they're going to scratch their heads because they're not going to understand what you're talking about. And the reason is Bill Mollison is using the word percent slope a different way than what everyone else uses it. For example, let's say I invented this really great tasting beverage, and I said it's best to drink this beverage at 35 degrees. And I didn't say anything else. In the United States, they're going to take it and put it on ice to cool it down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. The rest of the world is going to warm up the tea kettle to try to warm it up to 35 degrees Celsius. The two are completely different, and even though you said the word degree, you didn't clarify which unit you were using. So in the engineering world, percent slope is not a simple chart like this. I wish it was, but it's not. In the engineering world, percent slope is governed by this equation. Rise over run times 100 equals percent slope. What that is you take the vertical distance you traveled, divide it by the horizontal distance you traveled, and then multiply it 100, and that turns it into a percentage. That gives you percent slope. So for example, in the engineering world, let's say you're driving down a road and you see a 3% slope or a 3% grade for the next 5 miles, or whatever the sign says. What that's telling you is for every 100 feet you travel horizontally, vertically you just change 3 feet. So for this, a 3-foot rise, which also is a drop, it can go either direction. 3-foot rise here divided by 100 feet is 0.03 times 100 to convert that to a percentage gives you 3% slope. Now another one, let's say you're on a steeper piece of property and you walk horizontally 10 feet and then you go up 3 feet over that same distance. You do 3 feet divided by 10 is 0.3 times 100 gives you 30% slope. So the nice thing, to kind of help you understand what these numbers mean, another way to look at it is, let's say you know you're on, let's say a 3% slope. If you can measure your horizontal distance, let's say you drove horizontally a mile and you're on a 3% slope. That means you just dropped 3% of 1 mile. Let's say you drove 500 feet. You just dropped 3% of 500 feet. So the nice thing about this equation, even though it might take a little bit to get used to, is that it allows you to get more information out of it. Allows you to understand the slope better than what this does. So let's look at a chart. So if this is a right angle, outside of the permaculture world, if you say that's a 10% slope, you're talking about a 5.7 degree angle. Let's say you look at it and you say that's a 50% slope, you're looking at a 26.6 degree angle, which a 50% slope is also a 2 horizontal, so a 2 to 1 slope. Now let's say you're trying to understand the two. So if you had only been exposed to the way Bill Mollison described it, let's say you looked at you were on the side of a mountain and you had a steep slope and you said that was a 50% slope. Now if you talk to anyone outside, let's say you're talking with surveyors, bulldozer operators, contractors, anything like that, if you try calling that a 50% slope, they'll scratch their head, because to them a 50% slope is 26.6 degrees instead of 45 degrees. So there's a big difference. To them, and to all the surveyors, contractors, everyone like that, a 45-degree angle is 100% slope. Because according to the equation, if we have 1 foot or 1 unit of vertical change to every 1 unit of horizontal change, that's 1 divided by 1, which is still 1, times 100 gives you a percentage. So 100%. According to the Permaculture Design Manual, the way they use their terminology, that would only be a 50%. Now to show you what happens above that, a 500% engineering slope is 78.7 degrees. According to this, you can only hit 100%. So the reason we're doing this video is to kind of highlight what the difference is between the two methods. What Bill Mollison talks about is more accurately described as percent of right angle. So 50% of a right angle if it was 25, 25% of a right angle if it was 75, 75% of a right angle, which is a brilliant way to look at it. I wish they would have looked at that. I wish someone like Bill Mollison would have been around when they were coming up with the degree system for a circle. Because if we would have had 100 units like Bill Mollison said, the math would have been so much easier instead of 90. So to relate Bill Mollison, what's more accurately described as percent of right angle, to degrees, 1% of right angle, and since the world loves acronyms, I just created the acronym PORA, percent of right angle. 1 PORA equals 0.9 degrees. So 10% of right angle would be a 9 degrees. So when you are working, when you're going through your PDCs and you're learning this stuff, when you go through the Permaculture Design Manual and you see percent slope, he's actually talking about percent of right angle. So how far between 0 and a vertical line are we? Now if you're talking to someone outside the permaculture world, you need to understand he's using this unit, this term. They are using all of this math equation right here. So you have to understand that there is a difference. And we'll have more videos later on how the two compare, how to convert between percent of right angle and degrees, how to go from percent slope. We'll do more videos on it. The main point of this one is just to highlight that there is a difference between these two. And if you try using the same term and going back and forth and interchanging them, you're going to have a lot of problems, a lot of confusion problems, because people aren't going to understand what you're saying. You're not going to, if you're going out and you're trying to survey a property and you say anything above a 50% slope, do this. Well, to them, you're talking about a 45-degree angle. They're only talking about a 26.6 degree angle. So it drastically changes what you're doing where. So anyways, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them underneath here. We'll be doing more videos to try to clarify this more. I'm an engineer, so sometimes I have problems speaking outside of the engineering world. So please feel free to comment. Ask us any questions. Well, if we have to do more videos to clarify this, we will. If you don't understand it, just put "you don't understand it" down there and try to write down what you don't understand. And we will do everything we can to help you out, because on the gauge frame level, percent slope is based off of the engineering world, because that's what the surveyors are going to use. That's what the construction workers are going to use. So anyways, this is James. Please feel free to leave a comment, and we will talk to you later.